everyone, welcome to the News9 Plus Show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. Last night, Indian students protested outside the Oxford Union in the United Kingdom. They protested over a debate titled, "This House Believes in the Independent State of Kashmir." This was hosted by the Oxford Union, Oxford University's debating society, and it was about the political status of Kashmir, a region historically disputed by India and Pakistan. Now, before we start our conversation, let's see what happened.
Union! Unholy communion! Terrorists in union! Unholy communion! Terrorists in union! Terrorists! No invite! Terrorists! No invite! Terrorists! No invite! Terrorists! No invite! Terrorists! No invite!
Kashmir is
India!
Kashmir was
India!
Kashmir will be
India! Place for terrorism! No place for terrorism! Free speech! No hate speech! Free speech!
JKLF is a terror organization. JKLF is a terror organization that has killed so many Kashmiri Pandits. It has massacred lots of Pandits and also it has killed a Hindu government official in Birmingham. This house, I do not trust this house. What I've done is I've actually launched a no confidence motion against the president because I believe a lot of members of this house do not have any faith with the president of this Oxford Union because he is nothing but a stooge of ISI, he is nothing but a stooge of Pakistan, and this house has no confidence in the president. I hereby rest my case.
Well, so that is what exactly happened within the premises in the Oxford University, and that is what was said in protest. Now, these protests were against the two invited speakers, Muzzammil Ayyub Thakur and Zafar Khan, who are known for peddling the Pakistani narrative on Jammu and Kashmir with active backing from the Pakistani military establishment. And Muzzammil Ayyub has a UAPA case against him in India. Now, Oxford Union has a rich history and a long tradition of bringing together world leaders, thinkers and influencers to debate issues and explore ideas across politics, religion, science, art and literature. But today, we are talking about when does debating and exploring different issues cross the line from free speech to glorifying the acts of terrorism. It's a very thin line that we're discussing about here. Let's not forget, BBC would refuse to even allow the voice of Irish leader of Sinn Féin during the IRA civil war days. And also, why are campuses in USA and the UK being used for anti-Indian activities? Well, joining me to discuss this are Ambassador Suresh K. Goyal, political analyst Surinder K. Lali, and in the studio is my colleague Aditya Kaul, and Dr. Abhinav Pandya, the CEO of Usana's Foundation, think tank and radicalization. Well, I welcome you all gentlemen to the show. Aditya, I am going to start with you because you more than anyone else are a part of this protest as you were the first one to protest this very panel. Can you tell us what happened?
You know, in July this year, I got an invitation from the Oxford Union who said that, I have been invited to participate in this debate against the motion, and the motion was that Kashmir should be an independent state. Even though I had strong reservations against the topic of discussion, I chose to actually accept this invite in July. I have a letter that I subsequently made public as well. But in the last few weeks, I realized from my friends in UK that the invited people included two members. One is Muzzammil Ayyub Thakur, who has a UAPA case against him. He is nothing but on the payrolls of the Pakistani ISI, doing their work in the UK. His NGO has been funding terror activities and law and order situation in Jammu and Kashmir. And the other person is Zafar Khan, which I came to know only yesterday. He is the chief of the JKLF in UK. JKLF, for those who do not know, is the organization responsible for the killing of Kashmiri Pandits in Kashmir. Not just that, years before that, in the 80s, JKLF's Amanullah Khan and Masarat were responsible for the killing of the first Indian diplomat, Ravindra Matre, in Birmingham after his kidnapping. Now imagine a terror organization with blood on their hands is being called for a debate in Oxford Union. How can I, as someone who believes in a democratic discourse, who believes in different ideologies coming on the same platform and discussing, how can I give legitimacy to Islamist terrorism, to terrorism that uses violence to actually further their agenda. So I chose to withdraw, as did some other participants from India. And somehow at last moment they wanted the debate to take place, so included some 3 names randomly. But otherwise, I think the Indian students in Oxford have written about it, have protested. There are at least 100 people who turned up yesterday and protested against it. And my kudos to Adesh Mishra, the student of Oxford who protested inside. It takes courage. He took a bold and a brave stand to actually throw reality and show them the mirror that terrorism cannot be debated. There can be no good and bad terror. There can be no difference between terrorism. In India also, we have a stand against JKLF, which is a terror organization, and we believe in democracy, we believe in free speech, but that does not mean people who kill innocents in Kashmir or other places will be included in that democratic discourse.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, as you very rightly mentioned, it is high time someone actually took this stance,
Yes.
and that too in this very atmosphere, in the very premise where this debate was going on. With that, I would like to come to Ambassador Suresh K. Goel next. Ambassador, to you I would want to ask this. There is an anti-India sentiment we have seen even in the past in the Oxford University. What is it that keeps fueling it? What is it that brings the situation to an extent where we see a debate of this sort, where we see participants being 2 terrorists or alleged terrorists, as we are saying at this given point?
Shreya, I'm going to speak my mind to the subject here because Aditya has already spoken there before me. He has clearly given his views and he's most welcome to the views he holds. He chose not to participate in the debate where there were 2 participants who were on the other side, I don't know much about them, frankly speaking, but who are accused of being part of JKLF, etc., etc., and therefore he chose not to take part with them. Good. I don't support terrorism. I'm absolutely against any act of terrorism, as against any act of violence to persuade anyone else to agree to the views. It reads to me either you are with me or you are not. You're not with me. So I'm going to take other side of the view now. Really here, agreed that what actually the way they were chosen. They were not the people who are, I would call them enemies of India, let us say, or enemies of the Indian democracy, let us say. I recall the words of Voltaire, who said, I may not agree with your view, but I will defend your right to say, speak, articulate your views. Now, the point really here is, I have been listening to debates in Oxford Union also for quite some time. Not for 2 or 3 years, more than 10 years. And they have been debating issues, they have been saying things. I do not think that you can say that they have been against India. There have been times the subjects have not been of choice of India, where it is convenient to us or it is comfortable to us, where I know, and in fact, I still listen to those speeches. There have been Indian students who have very, very valiantly, very passionately defended our views and who have completely floored the audience with the way they articulated the views and defeated the motion against India. That's a kind of a debate and the level of debate which I've enjoyed there, really. Whether I agree with what they say or not is the quality of debate. And coming from a democratic country, I do believe in debate. I do believe in free debate. I do believe that everybody has a right to articulate the views, but nobody has a right to basically suppress the views of the others, either through use of law or through use of violence. Now, having said that, I think protest, the students have right to protest. I was part of the Delhi University and we have protested on various things day in and day out. In fact, the years I was in the DU, the protest street marches were frequent. But in this particular case, I would say that I believe, it's my view really, and I'm fully subject to correction, that the way to go about this is that now there will be people there in the debate who will be speaking against India. It would have been good, because I don't think that they will they may cancel the debate, but more likely not. But if the debate does take place, there would be a preponderance, the views which are not favorable to India, go right against what our point of view is, and there will be no one to defend those views. And that is what I don't think is the right way to go about it. I would have preferred if Aditya had gone there, by choice again, and I know he's very articulate, and defended what we stand for. And show those people that this is what actually the reality is, and this is where we are. I have worked in the United Nations system. In the General Assembly, in the various committees, we have had to listen to the diatribe from various biased sources.
Right.
And we defended that. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Ambassador. In fact, I'll take this question to you, Aditya.
Yeah.
Do you agree with Ambassador, and do you not think this also, sets the stage for a dangerous precedence to be set?
I agree and disagree both with Ambassador Goel, with due respect. I have of course read him very often. We see him on television every day, and I hold great respect for him. But I was in a catch-22 situation. I am ready to debate with a Pakistani, because initially I was told that the Pakistan Defence Minister Khwaja Asif and the UK Labour MP Naz Shah would be there, and knowing them very well, they are vociferous against India. They are vociferous against India also on Kashmir, and I was ready to debate them. Imagine me being a Kashmiri, a victim of Pakistani terrorism. I'm ready to debate a Pakistani, and that's not a problem. But the question here is that a person who is responsible for killing of an Indian diplomat, a person, an organization that is responsible for killing my community and my forced exodus and ethnic cleansing and genocide, an organization that continues to involve and provoke Kashmiris into a law and order situation, terrorism, etc. And organizations whose chief today is in Tihar jail since 5 years on a terror hawala racket. How can I put that person on the same pedestal, on the same page, and debate with him? That means that I am giving legitimacy to JKLF as a terror organization. I am giving not just legitimacy to JKLF, but to Lashkar-e-Toiba, but to Jaish-e-Mohammed, but to Hizbul Mujahideen. I do not stand for the views of terror organization, period. That's why I took a call, and I'm glad that at least 3 more people took that call, that we withdraw from this debate, although their reasons could have been different. But in my case, and in the case of those who are protesting today outside Oxford Union, we were vehemently against terrorism. As I said, in India, we are a free democracy. We are not like Pakistan. We allow every shade of opinion. And I would have respected if the Pakistani Defence Minister would have come as well. He gave an interview that after I withdrew and 2 others from India withdrew, he also withdrew from there. So the Pakistani Defence Minister and the UK Labour MP withdrew after Indians withdrew as well. But I do not, respect the position of the Oxford Union President, who has given legitimacy to terrorism and JKLF by inviting them on the same forum.
Right, Aditya. In fact, with that, I would like to now bring in political analyst Surinder K. Lali into the conversation. Mr. Lali, to you, my question is, in the backdrop of this entire scenario, where do you think the thin line is between free speech and what we see as interference? Is it at all okay to let, as we are calling them, terrorists, to defend a stance like this, to take part in a debate which is A, so sensitive a matter, and B, it gives a very colored and a very radicalized opinion from their side?
Thank you, Sriya, and it's a pleasure and honor for me to be here. And I don't think there's a thin line. There's a very thick line. I mean, I'm all for free speech and debates, and that's what I've done my entire life. But anything which incites violence, which talks about, especially in the present context, the way it's evolving in Canada, which talks about the dismemberment of a country, which talks about targeting the diplomatic staff, which talks about blowing up the parliament, which talks about blowing up a national airline, and that to a friendly Commonwealth, English-speaking allied nation. So if I was to take this from the top and, sort of pan it out and not keep it to the Oxford invite because I'm so jealous I didn't get one, but having said that, these are part of a larger narrative which the developed economies play, and especially the deep state within them. And this is very wide. It could be the George Soros, the think tanks, the IMF, the World Banks, the universities, and now even the Five Eyes, in which even Washington Post becomes a little tool in ferrying information around. So let's understand that in today's day and age, geopolitical warfare can do a lot more than what you can probably do, what Israel can do to Iran with an 1,800-kilometer border, or what Americans have failed in doing in Ukraine and Russia. So these are tactics that are played to keep a country which might not choose to become an ally instead of us becoming a strategic partner. So it's just to put us on the back foot, or a country on a back foot, so that the hegemonic country gets a larger tool to deal with. And when it comes on the negotiating table, the country with more power can use that. And I'm just going to end this by giving you one example of how the Pannu, the key element from New York, is panning out. I mean, he's probably crossed every possible Lakshman Rekha, which he ought to do, and that too in the United States of America, where he lives in Queens, and the Statue of Liberty and Free Speech, the United Nations, and the Statue of Liberty are probably just 20 miles from his house. So please understand that the convenience silence of the CIA, which probably nourishes him as an asset, these are all part of the larger deep state. These narratives are created simply to keep a country in check, so that they are more occupied in dealing with their internal issues and the possible rifts that these developed economies can create. So that's my limited point, Shreya.
Absolutely. In fact, I would bring in Dr. Abhinav Pandya into this conversation. Dr. Pandya, there is another narrative to this. India now has become a country, it's becoming a nation, which is the voice of the South Asian part of the world. It's the voice of the global South, as we call it. At this juncture, what would you say is the importance of a student, of an Indian student, or for that matter even our colleague Aditya, coming out and withdrawing their names from this particular debate, refusing to take part in a particular debate, which is which definitely there is a radical element involved in it, given the kind of guests we see who are invited to, defend a given stance of the debate. Where does India stand at this given point? Do you think it's like, in fact, Ambassador said that, a debate is a debate. You treat it as one. But don't you think India in itself is also coming out with a narrative that yes, we will not be tolerating this? Somewhere we are drawing the line, and it's a very important line that needs to be drawn at this given point.
Thank you, Srishi. Well, I think this is the time when India is coming up as a major world leader, leader of the global South, as a powerful civilizational state. So when we talk about a confident India asserting itself as a civilizational state, India needs to send out its own narrative also. And what Aditya did is a very confident and a very powerful symbol of what New India stands for. Okay. So far, let me put it very bluntly, our so-called intellectuals, academics and diplomats, they have thrived on borrowed wisdom. All these notions of democracy, free speech, they have been taught by the Western theologians, Western academics and Western philosophers to us. All the theories of international relations and political science are those which were developed in the Western campuses. Unfortunately, our intellectual class completely forgot to learn from our classics. Okay. And when they teach you about democracy, debate, okay, well, we have every right to say that, well, we will define these terms. Okay. Now this is at a very fundamental level, I want to puncture this democracy narrative. Okay. What is debate? They don't need to tell us. We know what is debate, okay, and how to debate. Okay. Now second part, in the Western world, their deep state has always used academic institutions and think tanks to pursue their strategic objectives. Okay. Academia, journals, very powerful think tanks and media outlets, they are all the part of that big cabal, that big nexus which wants to pursue that agenda. Okay. I am not mentioning any particular Western publication, but for obvious reasons I am not mentioning their names, but you look at them, you will find just one Google search will show you. I mean, what kind of articles they are publishing on Kashmir, what kind of research papers they are publishing on Kashmir. Recently, I was approached by one very prestigious global academic publishing house, and They asked me to write a paper on the recent elections in Kashmir, and I sent a paper. After that, they said that, well, you have not mentioned about the large-scale demographic changes that have taken place in Kashmir.
Wow.
Now tell me what kind of demographic changes. You have not mentioned about the big atrocities that have been meted out to various communities in Kashmir. Oh, this is like projecting an agenda. And secondly, when you bring terrorists and terror supporters to a debate, well, this is below my dignity. I am not dying for a debate. I am not desperate to debate with you. I don't need to prove my point. Okay, Kashmir is India's part. Kashmir is a civilizational legacy of India. You have this ancient myths, history, legends going back to thousands and thousands of years. So first of all, India doesn't need to prove its association, its cultural relationship, and its possession. Its I would say rightful ownership of Kashmir. Okay, that's an established fact. Okay, now if West wants to know, they can better come and ask us. We have every right to give answers. But yes, we refuse to debate with terrorists. If New York Times decides to publish an article written by someone from the Haqqani network, then in my eyes that completely denigrates the credibility of that media outlet. Okay.
Absolutely.
Shreya,
Yes,
finally, one last sentence that I can tell you is that Kashmir, I belong to Kashmir, not as a journalist, but as a panelist on your show today. Kashmir and Jammu and Kashmir is the philosophical head of India. We have saints like Laldet, like Abhinav Gupta, and several others. There are books like Nilmat Pudran and Raj Tarangni and others that have been written there. So no matter how the Pakistani deep state does its influence operation, be it in Oxford, be it in Rawalpindi or anywhere, that's not going to work anymore. India has done the nullification of 370. The Kashmiris have realized their future is with India, and legally speaking, geographically speaking, historically speaking, and speaking in the context of language, culture, traditions, their future is completely with India. It has been earlier and it will remain so, and no kind of these propaganda events are certainly going to turn the tide in Pakistan's favor.
Aditya, in fact, I would like to wrap this conversation with your comment on a particular question, which is why now? Why this topic? Why the subject of Kashmir now? 5 years after we see an abrogation of Article 370.
The simple answer to this is that Pakistan has completely failed in propagating their side of the story, if there is any. Over the years, they have gone to the UN, to several multilateral forums and spoken about Kashmir. After 370 nullification happened, they tried to provoke Muslim countries around the world against India, but rather those countries, including the UAE, the Saudi, Maldives, etc., chose to have better trade ties and bilateral relations with New Delhi. So I think Pakistan's lone agenda of a single-track foreign policy on Kashmir and a proxy war against India is certainly not going to work out. Of course, we need to be vigilant when it comes to Pakistan-sponsored terrorism. That is a fight that we have fought for more than 35 years now, and that will continue. But we will see a rise in this propaganda because Pakistan is also becoming the non-permanent member of the UNSC from 1st January 2025. So we will see more of this provocative behavior against India, but let's also remember that Trump is the president, and Trump's relations with Pakistan as well as Canada aren't as good as we understand. So interesting times ahead.
Absolutely. With that, we will have to wrap this discussion. Thank you to all our panelists, Ambassador Suresh K. Goyal, political analyst Surinder K. Lali, Aditya Raj Kaul in the studio with me, and Dr. Abhinav Pandya also in the studio with me. Very important discussion with regards to where do we draw the line with free speech, that too on such sensitive subjects. Is it at all okay to have radical guests of the sort that we saw in the Oxford University debate? Well, it is Friday today and you want to see a Hindi film in a theatre. Let's see which films are up for release. Kal Ho Na Ho, Karan Arjun, Andaz Apna Apna and Kaho Na Pyar Hai. No, don't be surprised as these are the films slotted to be released in the next 2 to 3 months. Takes you back to the 2000s, doesn't it? Well, now the trend of re-releasing films is not new to Bollywood. It was quite prevalent even in the 1970s, 1980s and even in the 1990s. However, the current re-release trend time is difficult to pinpoint, but it may have started with Amitabh Bachchan retrospective in October 2022 or the re-release of Mahesh Babu's 2006 hit Pokhiri in August 2022. But then it is in 2024, it seems that the floodgates have opened yet again. We've seen series of films from 1990s onwards being re-released. So today, we are talking about why is this happening? Is it just nostalgia or is there business involved as well? And also, on the business of re-releasing the films, do these films need any investment? So to talk about this and join me in the discussion, I have with me producer and screenplay writer Saurabh Verma and Girish Vankre, a film trade analyst. Welcome to you gentlemen to the News9 Plus Show. Well, I begin the conversation with Girish Vankre. You know, Girish, I want you to help us understand, and this is from a completely statistical and analytical point of view, what are the numbers that are coming in for these movies? We've seen these have been hits, the movies that we've just named. I mean, Kal Ho Na Ho, in fact, is to release tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, re-release tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. What are the numbers that have come in so far with the re-releases we've already seen?
Thank you. The first is the biggest hit in this recent time is, of course, Tumbad and Laila Majnu. So the numbers, if we see, Tumbad is somewhere around 16 to 20 crores, which is a big number. Likewise, if we talk about Laila Majnu, which was re-released, and that was re-released only because Tripti Dimri became suddenly a very huge star. And when it was released initially, there were no takers. But with the name and fame of Tripti Dimri, this film was re-released and it did considerable business of around 8 to 10 crores. So these numbers, if we see, these are amazing numbers because once you do a theatrical release, it's already been theatrically exploited. But when you are re-releasing the film, obviously these numbers add on the wonderful shelf life of the film. Also, there are several reasons because of these films become hit. And when you see these numbers, obviously you get inclined to release other films as well, like Karan Arjun, which will be released in a big way. Also, there are talks that there is a remastering of sound has been done for Andaz Apna Apna, which will be re-released in the coming year. So obviously, the business is there, but there are certain reasons. We can go to the reasons also as well, why that is happening. But as far as the numbers are concerned, they are amazing. They are good, positive.
Right, Girish, I'll shortly come to you with regards to the reasons. But Saurabh, I would like to take this question from you next. In fact, from basing it on the point that Girish has made here. It's quite interesting to see the day and time that this re-releasing phenomena has come in. Because in today's day, we see it is quite accessible for any viewer to just tap into any of the OTT platforms and go and watch their favorite movies instead of waiting for a re-release. So what is it that the directors, the producers of these movies from back in the day have thought behind these re-releases? What is it amid a time when we see content being king and new content being king, that these re-releases are taking place? Why have they bet on this?
So there's a joke in the industry that, Pooja Entertainment released Ganpat and then they re-released a film called Rehna Hai Tere Dil Mein. And the first day of Rehna Hai Tere Dil Mein was higher than what Ganpat collected throughout. So I guess, so there are 2-3 things to this. One, obviously, is that the films have not, the trend of re-releasing is not new. It's been there since, as far as I can remember, films like Sholay, Dilwale Dulhaniya have been releasing in gap weeks all throughout. But post-pandemic, there's a certain trend. And I think that trend is basically people do not want to waste time. People want to, have some kind of a value for their time, even if they're going for a movie. And movie is an experience for them. So rather than investing in a film which is not looking good, maybe it's new or whatever, but it's looking like very formulaic, they would want to invest their time in a film which they know that they've seen it, they've experienced it, and they want to experience it in a big screen. And that's why films like Rehna Hai Tere Dil Mein or Imtiaz Ali's Rockstar or several other films, including Tumbad, which didn't open well in its for the first time when it opened, and it's done a business of around 15 to 20 crores in the second opening run. And even Laila Majnu was a disaster when it opened because nobody knew the star cast. But throughout as the time passed, the songs really caught on. Tripti Dimri became the nation's heartthrob, and the second run, it made a lot of money. So I guess people, it's a great medium of escape, and it's a short way of knowing, okay, we are not going to get bored, we are not going to we're not going to be shortchanged with mediocre script because we know what the content is. Another example is Incredibles, the last franchise released after decades, and why it did so much of good businesses because the earlier parts were watched on DVD, on OTT, on various digital platforms, and there was a cult following for that film. So I think all these films have now a fan base and a following, which they would want to experience in the big screen.
Girish, that's a very interesting point that's been raised by Saurabh. Firstly, my question is there a code that they have cracked? Is there an equation that they have cracked here? Because, of course, there have been re-releases in the past as well. But these many re-releases, and that too all blockbuster movies that we've seen, like some of the names that I just took while I was introducing this very story, they are blockbuster names. We've all grown up watching these on our television sets, and we've also been waiting for it to be accessible on OTT platforms. So is there a code that Bollywood has cracked for which they are planning so many re-releases? And secondly, would people rather actually then, go and watch these old movies compared to the new stories that are coming up?
Actually, these films are not competing with the new films. There is this year, unfortunately, there is dearth of new films. We are not very strong on content this year. That's why these films initially were used as fillers because we didn't have that much continuous engagement or continuous content creation. That's why there was a certain gap. So they were used to as fillers. But as soon as we started looking at the business, then various old blockbusters also are now in the pipeline to be released. The first thing is every film has been already exploited, but if there is anything additional which is coming as revenue for this film, then it is a wonderful welcome for every producer. That's why they are re-releasing. Secondly, all these films are to be enjoyed in larger than life atmosphere, that is big screen. So even if they're available on OTT, people would love to go and experience that nostalgia. It has certain brand value. And then there is digital mastering of sound and technique also, which becomes a novelty again. So that regular charm is there. In addition, there is a business sense also, because while Gadar 2 was released, there was a re-release of Gadar 1. So that re-release of Gadar 1 has helped Gadar 2 to build up. So this is also a business equation. So when now similar to this, if Laila Majnu is a huge hit, then obviously it will help the upcoming releases of Tripti Dimri as well. So it makes business sense. And then suddenly when you see box office potential also, it simply means that people are there waiting to experience the nostalgic films again in bigger screens. So it's a win-win situation for everybody, the exhibitors, the producers, and of course for the audience as well.
Saurabh, that actually brings us to a very important point, which is there was a time I remember during pandemic when there was this rampant discussion about, so is theatre going to die with OTT coming in? Is all content going to, be only released on OTT, since it's so easily accessible? It's right there on your fingertips at all times. But I think this re-releasing phenomena actually gives the answer years after COVID that yes, no matter what OTT content has to, deliver, but people, especially in India, live for that larger than life experience. They want to go out and go to the theatres, and definitely there is a reason we still have DDLJ playing at Maratha Mandir even now. I think this is one of the biggest answers for that. And
so basically, if I give an example, and I completely agree with you, the example of films can be compared to any other business like food or restaurant. You may cook the best food at home, but once in a while you'd like to go out, once in a weekend you'd like to go out and enjoy a good gourmet in a good restaurant. So same for films. You may, watch films in OTT, see it all day, night. But once in a weekend, and Indians don't go to fishing. They're not there are not too many people who go to pubs or nightclubs, or they don't have a life beyond their working culture, except for films and cricket, obviously. But films is one of their lifelines of Indians. So if there is a good content, and that's also a message to people who are making films, there's so much of quantum coming, there's so many things coming. I think these are exciting times where a film may not work in its first run, but there's always a chance that people may latch it up through other means of digital streaming and would want to watch it on a big screen. And I think it's a very heartening thing.
Right, Saurabh. So help us understand this as well. What is the process behind these re-releases? What are the mechanisms involved in these re-releases that are being made?
So basically, one is obviously the fan base kinds of creates a noise in the social media. Secondly, first people thought that, okay, maybe it's the particular genre of rom-com which people want to see, but then Tumbad came and that made a difference. Gadar 2 made a difference. So there is some kind of a nostalgia element which the programmers or the cinema programmers are wondering that if it's nostalgia, how far can it go? Will a Karan Arjun work? Will a Shah Rukh Khan's old film work? So everybody's trying their own things and seeing what is working. Out of the 10 films which are re-released, I think 5 to 6 are working, 4 are not working. So they're replacing and trying and testing all films which have nostalgic value.
Right. Girish, I'll come back to you, and I'd started off with a statistical question, and I'm going to end this conversation on a financial, economical note as well. Help us understand the economics involved behind this, because they're investing, they're putting in money into these re-releases yet again. So how is that entire process working out? While Saurabh has explained the creative process involved, the marketing process involved, take us through the economics behind it.
No, see, the economics is very simple. The film is with you, and you have already exploited it theatrically, on digitally also. But now, when your film is there, you need to do digital mastering of the film. You need to enhance the video quality of the film. Once that is done, then you again put in into P&A. So P&A is print and advertising, where you put some money for marketing of the film. You do the press releases. Again, the PR machinery is revamped, and then you do small media buying, and because of Book My Show and Paytm, the film is there. So the investment is very less because there is a certain brand value, and because of digital promotion of also in various platforms or the verticals, the film is promoted in a very, very less amount. So the economics is very, very simple, and it is a limited release. It's not a pan-India huge release. So you have a control on your economics of investment. That is, if you are marketing and distributing films, it goes with a very, very less money, because your exhibitors come on ratio. Then your marketing spend is very less, because there is a certain brand value. People know about the film. So only 1 or 2 PR stories here and there will serve the purpose. So overall, if you see, re-releasing becomes a very big business, because you have just invested some amount, say 1% or 2% of the amount in the post-production.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but just taking an example here, what would you do with a movie like Andaz Apna Apna? It had flopped when it had initially released. Yeah.
So for Andaz Apna Apna, you will remaster the sound and video quality, which they are right now doing. So that post-production work will not take more than, say, 20-25 lakhs. After that, for a digital promotion and a PR promotion, it will not be another 20-25 lakhs. So that will be 50 lakhs is your marketing and post-production budget. And then the distribution. So the bigger you distribute, the bigger number of screen count you do, the bigger is the investment. So another 1 crore you put. So your for the distribution. So your overall investment is around 1.5 crores. And if you do with a film of Amir Khan and Salman Khan, just you do the re-release, and you will see that this film will not make less than 5 crores as your share. So your investment was only 1.5 crores. But so you will be getting anything above 5 crores. That is
Right,
the business.
right. I mean, interesting times ahead in the Bollywood, in fact, within the sign world, with these re-releases happening. Of course, a period of nostalgia. Saurabh, yes, a closing comment from you?
Yeah, and it also opens opportunity for sequels because Tombar 2 has been announced, and though I don't think Laila Majnu 2 is possible because the protagonist died, but there's always a possibility of building a franchise with this nostalgia value. So it gives a lot of hope to the makers as well as audience who's becoming really smart. They're consuming the content only what they like. They will not buy what you want to sell. They will buy what they like, and it can pass through the test of time as well.
So it's like taking you back there. It's just like rejogging the audience's memory before you, in fact, announce the sequel. That's a great marketing technique for sure. Well, Saurabh Verma and Girish Wankade joining us on News9 Plus for this discussion. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being with us here. News9 Plus did a report on the re-release of films from the 90s like Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge and Hum Aapke Hai Kaun, Veer Zara, churning out the moolah once more at the box office. Watch our story with the same name, rewind and replay only on News9 Plus.
Picture this. It's the 90s, the golden age of Bollywood. Movie halls are packed. Every Friday feels like a carnival of cinema. Films like Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge and Hum Aapke Hain Kaun are ruling the box office, and fans are dancing in the aisles to Chhaiya Chhaiya. Fast forward to 2024. Today's film buff has seen it all. The blockbusters, the OTT revolution, and the pandemic that almost brought the curtains down on theatres. But guess what? Old is gold again. Play it again.
The owner was skeptical about how many people would turn up. But in 1.5 hours, his show was booked. In 6 hours, Saturday and Sunday shows were also booked. So then they had to increase the shows, and then they doubled it, and then they tripled it, and it's been 5 weekends already, and it's still running in Srinagar.
I actually went and watched it on the weekend with my husband, who was seeing it for the first time, and some of my friends, and it was so special to hear the clapping and the whistling and people singing the songs as they were playing out on screen. It was special.
I think a re-release of Mr. India would be a great idea. And I would encourage Mr. Boni Kapoor to go ahead and release the film.